Greetings, peace be with you. So in this video, we are going to be exploring the 4 archetypes of the mature masculine and how they integrate to create the expression of the king. How can you become the king of your own life, and what does it truly mean to be a great king? That is exactly what you will discover by the end of this video. Now, when I refer to these 4 archetypes of the mature masculine, I am referring to a book titled King, Warrior, Lover, Magician by Robert Moore, who was a Jungian psychoanalyst, and he is exploring these archetypes, right? So what is an archetype? You can think of it like a universal pattern which exists in the collective consciousness, right? So these characters that we have, which really occur throughout different civilizations, they occur throughout time, right? The king, the warrior, the lover, magician, these are what categorize what it means to be a mature masculine man on your path and purpose in your life, right? And each one of these 4 archetypes characterize each one of the 4 dimensions of who we are, right? Who you are is a combination of how you think, what you do, how you feel, and who you are, right? Who you are is the king, right? The state of being. But when what you think and what you do and what you feel are out of alignment with that, then we fall back to that lower vibration, and then we don't actually become the kings of our kingdom, right? We become the victims of some external agenda that is specifically engineered to hijack our attention, right? What do you give your attention to? If you give it to your growth, to your improvement, to your development, and you bring into harmony the thinking, doing, and feeling aspects of who you are, then it is only due time that you will become the king of your life, okay? So starting with a thought, right? Everything starts with the thought, and this is characterized by the masculine archetype of the magician, right? And you can think of this like Yoda in Star Wars. You can think of this like Morpheus in the Matrix, right? You can think of this as Gandalf and Lord of the Rings. These are the patterns that occur in terms of the magician, right? This is the archetype of thinking and awareness. And what we really have to narrow down on is the golden mean, right? Because we have a vice that is of excess, we have a vice that is of deficiency, right? But if you are thinking just right, like the Goldilocks, oh, it's too hot, it's too cold. Felt a sneeze coming over there. And then just right in the middle, as Aristotle would say, the golden mean, right? The virtue exists at the center of the vices of excess and deficiency, right? So when the magician archetype is activated to the excess, right, to the vice of excess, that is when you're thinking too much. And this can be characterized by perfectionism, right? You're just thinking and thinking and thinking, and it's too much, and that is not leaving enough energy for the other aspects of who you are. On the other side of it, when you're not thinking enough, then you are just like not even thinking about anything, right? You just are not allowing enough energy to flow into that. And then when you're not allowing enough energy to flow into your own thinking is when your thinking gets hijacked by external agenda. So right in that middle ground, on that golden mean, is the expression of the magician, right? You're thinking, you're getting that awareness, but you're also aligning it with the next step of your expression, which is the doing, which is the warrior archetype, okay? Now, I would say that the virtue that embodies the warrior archetype is that of courage, right? Of feeling the fear and doing it anyway, right? Because your growth is on the other side of your comfort zone. I'm sure that is not the first time that you've heard it, but every single moment we have an opportunity to step forward into growth or backwards into comfort. And the warrior is the one who steps forward and fights the good fight against the higher and lower versions of himself, right? Now, again, we have a vice of excess, which is recklessness, right? Courage in its excess becomes the vice of recklessness, whereby you're doing without actually thinking about the doing, right? Am I actually moving in that right direction? As I've spoken about in a previous video, direction is more important than speed. And sometimes when we get in this warrior archetype, I've definitely been there, just taking action, going hard, and then looking back like a couple of months later, realizing that I was headed in the opposite direction of where I wanted to go. But sometimes it's like we don't know how much is enough until we know how much is too much, right? Sometimes. So the vice of excess is recklessness, and the vice of deficiency would be cowardice, right? Whereby you're just lacking that initiative, whereby you have no energy to go and take action, and you just become very numbed out to following through with the behaviors that serve your highest expression, right? So the warrior archetype, like there's no shortage of that in Hollywood, right? We can see the warrior archetype in that movie called Braveheart. William Wallace was a warrior, right? In Gladiator, Maximus was the warrior, right? And in 300, what's his name? Leonidas was the warrior king as well, right? So this is the expression of doing, and like I said, right in the golden mean of just right, right? The virtue, which is in the middle of the vice of excess and the vice of deficiency. And then we get to the level of feeling, right? Your thought leads to a choice, which leads to a behavior, which leads to an experience, of which the end result is a feeling that you have, right? The emotion. And this is characterized by the lover archetype. Now, again, this is not so much as, it's more to do with our sense of vitality, right? If you were to think about the virtue, it would be like zest. Like, you have a zest for life. Do you have a taste for life? Are you truly experiencing life? Or are you getting too caught up in the thinking and the doing, right? It's all about finding the harmony between these aspects so that we can begin to enter into the state of being that is characterized by the king. But when it comes back to the lover, this is the aspect of you that is associated with spirituality, with feeling, with higher level of awareness, with a connection to something deeper, right? And, many times I've seen guys make videos that, oh, emotional men are weak. Like, just don't express your emotions at all. Just completely numb them out and do what needs to be done again and again and again. But the way I see it is that emotions are really signals, and we can go and take the action. We can go and stay consistent with our schedules, but it's important to reflect on how we feel about it, right? Thoughts are the language of the mind, emotions and how we feel is the language of the soul, right? And sometimes when we tap into how we feel, we can assess whether or not we are living in alignment with that higher aspect of ourselves or not. Now, in the book, Robert Moore actually describes the vice of excess, which is the addicted lover, right? This could be thought of as just like too in touch with your emotions, with not enough energy, leading towards the doing and the thinking aspects, right? You're just driven through your emotions, and your emotions could be affected by some external circumstance, and therefore you just are at the mercy of them, right? And then on the other side, we have the vice of deficiency, which is the impotent lover, as Robert Moore would describe it, where you just don't have that zest, you don't have the energy, and you are just numbed out, you don't feel life. And it would be characterized by apathy, by depression, by vibrating at that very low frequency, because you're just not feeling anything, right? But when we bring these virtues into alignment, right, the virtues of the magician, the warrior, and the lover, then they come home to meet the king, which really creates your whole state of being, right? Which is really determined by how you think, what you do, and how you feel about what you do. And when you bring these into harmony, when you bring them into alignment, that is when you find inner peace, right? That is when you tap into the highest aspect of yourself. So like in the mythology of the king, right? The king in like ancient China was the one who received the mandate of heaven. It was the connection between the higher world, right? The heavens and the earth. The king was the one that brought them together. And the king's major purpose is just to bring the order from the chaos, right? And first and foremost, he brings the order from the chaos into his own life. And then he helps bring it into his kingdom, right? Because it's impossible to give something which you have not created for yourself in the first place. And again, this does have like two vices of excess and deficiency. The excess would be the tyrant, right? The one who is just focused on other people while not bringing harmony within himself. This could be characterized by, for example, King Joffrey, right? In Game of Thrones, if you watch that as well. I'm sure you can think of some other examples where the king just lost his shit, right? So an example that comes to my mind is from the Roman Empire, right? We have Marcus Aurelius, who was the philosopher king, who literally, it just gives me the chills when I think about it, had once a designated person who followed him around all the time when he would walk around his empire or his city, whatever it is. People would come, they'd be like, oh, the philosopher king, they would like bow down to him and all of this. And then he would have a person that was designated to go and whisper in his ear, you're only a man. You're only a man, right? The humble king, the philosopher king, Marcus Aurelius. And then we have people like Nero, who just went crazy, right? He went crazy. He was like going through his own psychopathic tendencies, and he was not the king that lived up to the exemplification of harmony between thinking, doing, and feeling, right? He became the tyrant. And then on the other one is just be the weakling, whereby it's just you're not embodied in who you are. And that's more often than not because the different aspects of the warrior, the lover, and the magician are not in harmony, right? So that's how I think about it. Like at the end of the day, it's like thinking, feeling, doing, and then at the end of the day, being. And then we can hijack or we can shortcut that process by being the exemplification of who we believe we are meant to be, right? So just shortcutting the process by living into that ideal vision, right? Because so many times it's like, yeah, I want to do different, and then you do. And don't get me wrong, action is a necessary component of success, but the lens through which we are doing can make all the difference, right? It's not only about doing different, but being different. And when you be different, then the intention behind your action becomes that much more different. The intention behind your thoughts, the intention behind how you feel. Like you might feel the same way, but when you have a different perspective and awareness on it, you can go and use those same emotions, those same feelings to optimize moving ahead, right? So what does it mean to be a great king? The king is the integration of the warrior, the lover, and the magician, right? He's the one who's seen it all. He's the one who's been through the struggles. He's the one who has brought order into his own life and therefore is able to assist others on theirs, right? So we are all on this process, and of course we vibrate at different frequencies along our journey. It's not like we will always be aligned, but like I think about is, so I heard someone say actually that, you know, these virtues, these ideals, they are like guiding stars rather than awaiting shores, meaning that we can use them as a compass to assess whether or not we are moving in that direction. But it's not like we're ever going to get there, right? It's always a moment to moment thing whereby we're constantly fighting the good war between the highest and lowest version of ourselves. And more consistently that we can close that gap, the more we begin to experience the emotions of love, of joy, of bliss, and ultimately fulfillment, right? So I hope that this has been valuable for you. Leave a comment below letting me know your number one takeaway. Have you read this book? Have you not read this book? What is your idea on what it means to be a mature masculine man on his path and purpose? Leave a comment below. I love hearing from you. I love connecting with you. I love exploring these topics even deeper, okay? So with all that being said, subscribe if you have not already. Click the like button. It helps the channel grow a lot. And I will leave you in the peace and power of the one infinite creator, and I will catch you in the next one. Much love to you. Take care.